Hey, good morning, guys. It's good to see you all this morning. I hope you're doing well. Hope you've had a great week. We're going to do something a little bit different today, as you can tell. Just because this eclipse that's due tomorrow to pass across the United States is on the front of everyone's minds, I thought that maybe we would just do the entire time today looking at the different things that are being said about it, the different evidence that's out there for what might or might not happen. So, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear going around about this. And I really don't want that for any of you. You guys mean a lot to me. And so I would much rather have you know what everyone is saying out there, all the different things, and have the information than to have any kind of fear about what's going to happen. There's a verse in the book of Hosea, verse 4-6, that says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." And that was part of the indictment against the Jews in the Old Testament, that they simply didn't know or understand anymore about who God was and what their purpose was on this earth. And they lost their way in Babylon, and it was because they had no knowledge. Generations had passed and people weren't aware of what they were supposed to be doing. And how they were supposed to praise their God. And so anyway, I would rather us all be on the same page and all know everything that's out there, everything that's being said about this event, than to have any fear about the situation. So I thought that we would do that this morning, and I hope that that's okay with you guys. I'm also going to try to stay on top of your chat as we go, and at least hear what you guys are saying, perhaps respond to some of that as we go. There's going to be a lot of information that we're going to go through. I scrubbed almost everything I could find that people were saying about this eclipse tomorrow and what might happen. So we'll see how it goes and see how you guys like it. But please feel free in the comments in the chat to discuss with each other. Put ideas out for me. I'm going to do my best to keep an eye on it as we go. And just wanted to give a call out to everybody that's there already this morning, just to say good morning to all of you. B. Nichols, Terry Barnes, Julia Thomas, Tiffany Perry, Squiffy Bear, Stacia, Karen Morgan, Raina Waddell, Kelsey, good morning. Rick Bowser, good morning. Good to see you. Bernadette Evans, Graced Bear, Annie, excuse me. And then West Wind, you say that you're new to the channel and you've been really enjoying the content, West Wind. So I appreciate that. I hope that that's true and that you get a lot out of it. It's just for God. So whatever people get out of it is exciting for me. Laura Masood, it's good to see you. Julie Pachuli, if I didn't say your name already. Judy Hauser, Christina Hollis, good to see you guys. Tiffany, it's good to have you. Tanda, Selene, Katie, it's good to have all you guys this morning. Thank you so much for joining. Judy Berry, Puckwidge Fitness, Perusi, it's good to have you this morning. God bless you. I've been praying for you, by the way. And Bobby Starkey, it's good to have you here. Thank you for joining, even though you're new. I hope that you get a lot out of this. We're going to go through just a ton of information. Everything I could find really that I felt was valuable in regards to the eclipse. We're going to go through it today. I'm not going to add too much to that. I personally, I will say this, based on the research that I've done and everything I've seen, I still don't have any determination on what may or may not happen tomorrow. If it's going to be a good thing, a bad thing. But maybe you guys will have some opinions as to how we go here and what we see as to what that might be. So thank you for joining this morning. It's a little out of the ordinary. So just for everyone who is new, I just wanted to say what I normally do is I take topics live every Sunday morning at this time. And we do those topics, spontaneously off the cuff. We work together to make sure that we understand what, perhaps it's a Bible thing we're looking at, and understand what the Bible's saying and then interpret that correctly and get a true understanding of the nature of the text. But oftentimes we do interesting things like this. So just want you to know that this is a little out of the normal, but it should be a lot of fun this morning. And I hope it's helpful for everyone just to, again, understand what all is going on tomorrow, what we might be able to expect. So with that being said, I will pull up my notes. And as you guys know, I take notes in this kind of extensive way. I have a database where I put the information and then I pull it when we're going through stuff like this. But we're going to start with this today. I'm just going to go down through this. I've kind of prepared this document for exactly this. And let me see if I can at the same time get you guys chat on my screen so I can see what y'all are saying. And it's gonna be hard for me a little bit to keep my head on top of both things, and we'll see how we go. Needle Creek, good to have you this morning. I see you there. Deborah Hicks, good morning to you. All right, so this eclipse tomorrow is, as you guys know, probably the third in a string of eclipses. Excuse me. The first one starting in 2017. Where we had the eclipse go across the United States. And I believe they called that the Great American Eclipse. And I think they're actually calling this one the Great American Eclipse. So I don't really know, as far as the nomenclature, why they're deciding which they're going to call what. But one thing to note is that eclipse in 2017, according to some sources, and I didn't actually verify this, but that eclipse went through 7 different cities named Salem. And of course, Salem is the same as the word shalom in Hebrew. And so that's where that comes from. It means peace. So I hope that is, at least interesting. It is interesting that the eclipse kind of crossed those different cities named Salem. Does it significant? This is the kind of thing that I'm going to have to let you guys decide for yourselves. We each are going to have to decide for ourselves on some of this stuff. Is that important? Does that mean anything? Because there's no way for me to make a determination for you on some of these things. But yes, this eclipse in 2017, August 21st, crossed over, according to many people, 7 different cities named Salem. Then there was, of course, another eclipse in 2023, last year. And then the one we're talking about, of course, is this one that's going to happen tomorrow, April 8th, 2024. I just found it interesting as I was looking around that, I don't know if you guys knew this, but just a couple days ago, lightning struck the Statue of Liberty, and people got an incredible picture of it. And I just thought it was interesting. We saw this happen, if you remember, this happened, I believe it happened to the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, the Islamic mosque that's in Jerusalem a number of years ago, almost maybe 7 years ago to my knowledge. I don't remember exactly the date. There was also some interesting kind of UFO sighting near the Dome of the Rock not too very long ago, a number of years, but it's something to think about. It just does interest me that this kind of thing happens, and it seems so apropos to what's going on in our society, in our country. Most of us, some of you guys may not be inside the United States, but there is some kind of, I think, supernatural scenario that we're in the middle of. And I think things like this kind of lend credence to that, help us understand that, yeah, this is a serious time. I don't know what other information can be gained from this kind of thing, but I do think it's interesting. Now, it's interesting, I found this, that newspapers published in the first week of March of 1970, apparently there was an eclipse at that time, correctly predicted this eclipse to the day. And here's the shot from this newspaper article from 1970 that somebody found, talking about the 2024 eclipse and showing pictures of the eclipse that they were having at that time. It looks like this was in March of 1970, if I'm not mistaken there. I can hardly see the date and time up there, but it looks like March. So that's an interesting thing to me. Let's see, what do we have next? So NASA, I kind of wanted to go through the propaganda first, if you will. But NASA is, of course, talking all about this solar eclipse, playing it up. So I just thought I'd bring some of the information they're showing on it. You know, if you go to nasa.gov, it's all over their website. You know, they show the paths of totality and everything else. They have some pretty cool graphics, animations, all this different stuff. It's just kind of interesting to see how they promote it like it's a sporting event or something. You know, the parallels there are really, actually, now that I've said that out loud, they're pretty striking. Seems quite like a sporting event in a way. It's like the Super Bowl of NASA, right? And then here's their map of the path across the states. Let's see if I can actually open that a little bigger. Yeah, so you can see that apparently they're expecting by noon, a little after noon on Monday, for this to start passing over the United States, starting in Texas. And you can see as time goes on, it looks like from about 12:30 to 3:30, 4:30 p.m. That is when we're going to see, well, excuse me, yeah, you're crossing time zones here, so this actually is going to happen pretty fast, guys. So it starts at 12:30 CST, 12:30 Central Standard Time, and it will go until 4:35 ADT. I don't even know what is ADT, but it's 3:30 Eastern Time. So that gives us a span of only 2 hours during which this is going to cross the United States. So that's interesting. I wasn't really realizing it was so fast. Sounds like it's only going to be above the United States for a period of 2 hours when people are going to see this. That's pretty cool. So let me look at you guys' comments and see if there's anything to catch up on here real quick before we move on. Let me just see what you guys have. Christina Hollis, you mentioned you heard that it isn't the moon that will be blocking the sun's light. What's my understanding of what's causing the darkness? There's a lot of speculation about that, Christina, especially from people that, well, I believe, and I was looking for it in preparation for today, but I believe I have photos where you can see an eclipse in the sky and you see the moon off to the side. I also believe that there's historical documents that have recorded that scenario exactly. So there has been times where people have seen an eclipse and seen the moon off to the side in the sky at the same time. So that kind of lends credence to that this is not actually the moon. You know, I don't know what to tell you other than that. I know that there were some ancient cultures that said that there was a dark mass, essentially, I think it was, or a black sun, if you will, maybe, that caused this change in the sun. And, you know, so I don't know. It's one of those things that's very hard. I wish that we had more information to make the determination, but I would say based on the evidence we have that it's likely that it's not the moon causing this eclipse that we're going to see. And that's just my opinion. You know, I'm about 80-20 that's true if I had to place it. B. Nichols, you say you're hesitant to let one of your 4 kids go to school tomorrow. Everyone else wants to take their excused absence, but she wants to learn all about the eclipse from a heliocentric model. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Well, that's an interesting conundrum to be in, isn't it? Christina, you said JT follows JC mentioned this, and that it isn't the moon that will be causing the eclipse because the sun and moon will be visible at the same time. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. All right. A lot of people talking, Tiffany, you say, about not sending their kids to school tomorrow, and you're on the fence. Well, let's go through more information on that, and then we'll see more information about governments and locales are saying about this. Yeah, Raina, you say where you are, there's no school at all. Yeah, that's interesting. Katie McD, you say you thought it was the Vatican. I think I'm out of the loop on the conversation you're having, but do you mean it as far as them being responsible for the eclipse? After some of the information we look at, you may think that's true. I don't know. Let's see. The Aurora Borealis, Stacia, you say, is our sign that the New Jerusalem is established. Oh, interesting thought. Interesting thought. Okay. I pretty much caught up. All right. Appreciate you guys. Y'all are saying some really encouraging things to me, and I appreciate that so much in the comments. Let's continue then. Going forward, what else do we have after NASA? NASA director warns of unusual behaviors during the eclipse and that solar eclipses have special power, quote unquote. This is a very interesting little... We're going to watch this video real quick, so I hope the audio levels are good. I'll try to keep an eye on that, but let me know if you have any trouble with the audio here, and I'll try to play this video.
Said that at NASA, our mission is for all humanity, and that's because space brings us together. There's no better proof than moments like this, a total solar eclipse. It's a moment when millions of people across North America will look to the heavens as the moon passes in front and between the sun and the earth. And it's a rare sight that we haven't seen in 7 years. And unusual things start to happen as the normal rhythms of Earth are disrupted. When you're seeing this eclipse, you ought to observe this. As the day appears to turn to dusk and then dark, people have heard birds stop singing. They've seen giraffes suddenly begin to gallop. Roosters start crowing, and crickets chirp. So watch for these unusual behaviors. And we encourage you to help NASA observe the sights and sounds around you. Eclipses have a special power. They move people to feel a kind of reverence for the beauty of our universe. Their power is not only to unify us on Earth, but to further science and discovery. In 1919, Albert Einstein's theory of gravitational bending was proven when scientists measured how stars shift when the sun is blocked out by the moon. And today, over a century later, a total solar eclipse still brings great opportunity in science. Pam is going to share a little bit more about how NASA missions will use this rare moment to advance science. Safety is always NASA's #1 priority, and that remains true for this solar eclipse. Make sure you have the proper eye protection, like the eclipse glasses. And as you look at the heavens on April the 8th, when the eclipse starts, please, please put those glasses on. Now, I'm going to hand...
All right, so I thought that was a really interesting video. This NASA representative not only, and as you guys mentioned, I don't know if he misspoke, but he said ellipse in the beginning instead of eclipse. Probably he looks pretty old, you know. But anyway, him saying that eclipses have special powers, and there's all sorts of unusual behaviors from animals and humans during eclipses. It's just a really odd thing. So anyway, there's that. Then we have this information about NASA shooting a rocket at the moon, or maybe perhaps at the sun, or the shadow of the eclipse, I think is how they said it. The mission's called Apep, A-P-E-P. It is an acronym. We're going to talk further about what that might mean in just a little bit. But first, we're just going through this NASA information to see what they're saying. They're expecting to shoot this rocket or something like this up into or towards the eclipse. And of course, what they're saying they're going to be doing is studying the effects, the perturbations on the ionosphere of the Earth when the eclipse is happening. So to do that, they're sending this rocket up into the atmosphere at a certain height, I believe above 300 miles, but below 800, so that they don't interfere with any satellites, something like that, mumbo jumbo jargon. And so, and Forbes and everybody else is talking about it, the atmospheric perturbations around the eclipse path, Apep. And it is named, according to Forbes, by the way, after the serpent deity from ancient Egyptian mythology, the nemesis of the sun deity Ra, according to NASA. It's just interesting, and we're going to talk further about this deity in just a second, but it's just interesting that NASA always names their missions and their rockets and everything else after pagan gods. Have you ever thought of that? I know that I've known that for a long time, but I haven't just thought of, they always come up with names from pagan gods, from pagan worship, mythology, quote unquote, right? Well, of course, they want you to think it's mythology, but it's really pagan idol worship that they're getting their names and their information from for all of this stuff. So just be aware of that. If you're more tuned into NASA and some of their deception, then you probably know this already. But if you're not, just consider that, why would an entity, an organization like this always choose pagan deities as the names for their missions? It's something to ponder for sure. Here's a quote from this. As the eclipse shadow races through the atmosphere, it creates rapid localized sunset that triggers large-scale atmospheric waves and small-scale disturbances. These perturbations affect different radio communication frequencies. Gathering the data on these will help scientists validate and improve current models that help predict potential disturbances to our communications, especially high-frequency communications. So that's their official statement about what they're doing with these rockets. At first, when I heard it online, I think people kind of made it sound like they were going to try to hit the moon or shoot rockets at the sun. It's not that at all. They're just, I don't know what they're doing, but if this is what they're doing, yeah, whatever. They named it after a pagan deity. Then they're not only shooting rockets, but they're also going to have jet planes follow the solar eclipse as it goes across the nation. I don't know if you knew about this, but NASA is sending jets up to monitor the eclipse as well. Here's a couple different links. Let's see. Let's click on this one and see if it is something manageable as far as time.
If you're looking to catch the April 8th total solar eclipse, you'll want to be somewhere with clear skies.
For some scientists, that means heading above the clouds.
During the 2024 solar eclipse, the WB-57 airplanes will be flying at an altitude of about 50,000 feet, chasing the eclipse shadow over the coast of Mexico near Mazatlan.
3 science teams will be using 2 WB-57 jet planes to study different aspects of the eclipse. Firstly, these 2 teams with instruments in the nose and wings will be looking at the sun's outer atmosphere, known as the corona. Scientists often study the corona using spacecraft with coronagraphs. These are occulting disks that help block out the bright sun, but they also cover up the inner part of the corona. During a total solar eclipse, the moon perfectly blocks the sun's bright disk, allowing the entire corona to appear.
A total eclipse gives us the best view of the corona we can get, and it's even better when viewed from above.
The most exciting part of using the W57 is to get over the clouds and to get to a layer of the atmosphere where it's so much less dense.
This means that you can access wavelengths of light that you normally wouldn't be able to access on the ground.
The team led by the University of Hawaii will measure different wavelengths of light using spectrometers and cameras.
Their instruments will give insight into the corona's chemical composition and temperature.
We want to figure out what kind of processes are operating in the sun just above its surface or at its surface.
For the team led by the Southwest Research Institute,
this will be their second time chasing an eclipse, so they're using an improved camera setup.
In 2024, we're flying an evolution of the experiment we flew in 2017. Back then, we flew 2 cameras in 2 different wavelength ranges. For this experiment, we're flying 4 cameras that can measure in 7 different wavelength ranges, and that gives us more information about the kinds of structures that we're going to see.
The corona could hold clues to what creates solar wind, the stream of charged particles coming from the sun that can cause auroras, but also potential threats to our satellites and astronauts. The sun can also affect technology closer to home.
All right, I think you guys get the idea on that video. So I don't want to go through the last 2 minutes of it. We got a lot to get through, so we'll continue. But it's pretty interesting as far as what they're doing with these jets. So they have rockets and they've got jets. Now, I was on the NASA website and I noticed they have partners for the eclipse. NASA has a list of partners that they are, in some way cooperating monetarily, most likely, with these different groups. I thought it was a good list of perhaps compromised corporate entities that you might want to be aware of. These guys are working hand in hand with NASA to promote the eclipse, to promote this information. The MLB, the Professional Baseball League, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Peanuts Worldwide, Krispy Kreme. Of course, Krispy Kreme is also notorious for giving people free donuts for getting a COVID vaccine, in case you were wondering. They're probably not good guys. Google, of course, is partnering with NASA for the eclipse. Third Rock Radio, NASDAQ, the NASDAQ in general, that runs all the stocks. Crayola, the crayon company. Lego, the Lego Foundation for Education. Microsoft, the Discovery Education. Now this is the Discovery Channel, if you will. Canva, Achievery, National Esports Association. So if you video gamers out there thought that your organizations were immune to, control by the power brokers, you're probably wrong. The Esports Association is in league with NASA. Jack and Jill of America, the Girl Scouts of the USA, the National Park Services, Earth to Sky, 4-H clubs all over the United States, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So just some interesting associations there between NASA and these different groups. Now, I found a good video that talked about the weather that's going to occur on the day of the eclipse. So for those of you who are thinking about going to see it, this may be something that you've either already considered or you should consider about what weather you could encounter that day.
To what we were looking at on Saturday in the plains, this looks like mostly an elevated hail and wind threat. The tornado threat looks very low right now. Now, as we go all the way into Monday, we do expect for there to be some resurgence of moisture on the tail end of the cold front here. That kind of leads to another secondary low that produces another severe weather threat down here in Texas and the Red River Valley. And of course, this overlaps with the path of totality for our total solar solar eclipse here. So let's watch this whole thing play out. Here's our storm system that's going to cause our intermittent severe weather over the next couple of days. And here's what the weather map could look like around 2 p.m. on Monday. This is when the solar eclipse will be occurring. It's going to start around 1 p.m. down here, 2 to 3 p.m., 3 to 4 p.m. That's considering time zones. That's around when the totality is going to be occurring. So for the most part, it looks like precipitation will be missing the path of totality, except for maybe over here in northwestern Pennsylvania and of course a little bit of southern Texas. The precipitation doesn't really start increasing until we get later in the day on Monday. This is our slight risk of severe weather right here. This is when our storms are going to be popping up. So in the best case scenario, we're not going to have too much cloud cover down here during the solar eclipse earlier in the day. However, the European model's cloud cover forecast is pretty unsettling if you're planning on going out and trying to view the eclipse. We still have this broad cloud cover that is expected from Dallas through Little Rock up through St. Louis, Indianapolis, into Ohio as well. The only place where it looks like it's going to be certainly clear is up here in northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and portions of Maine. If you are somebody who would do anything to see the eclipse and budget isn't a problem, you got to go to Maine, okay? Otherwise, the rest of us are going to have to just hope for peaks in the clouds. It looks like that is going to be a little bit more likely potentially over here in Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, as there is a clear slot trying to break in. GFS looks a little worse for places like St. Louis, Dallas, down through Little Rock, but it does show a clear slot up here in the Ohio Valley once again. So me personally, this is where I'm probably going to end up going. I'm going to try to view the eclipse somewhere up here and just hope for the best. I don't want to go all the way to Maine. I would have probably flown down to Texas if that was going to be clear, but nope. It's looking like that's almost certainly going to be too cloudy down there to really see anything.
All right, so that's kind of a weather report. Now, I didn't verify this guy's accuracy against anything. It looks like he's using, types of models and satellite imagery. So I would just say that if you're planning to go see the eclipse, make sure you check the weather models on a few different sites and see if you get an indication that you're going to be somewhere where you can actually see it, if that's what your goal is. So to continue on, a planetary alignment is also going to occur tomorrow. I don't know how many of you knew this, but a very interesting planetary alignment during the eclipse. In the sky, we're going to have Uranus, Jupiter, the comet, which is, of course, the Devil's Comet that we're going to talk about in a minute. Mercury, Venus, Neptune, Saturn, and Mars all in a row lined up with the eclipse. It's going to be quite interesting that is the case. So yeah, according to this site, this will be one of the biggest celestial events of 2024. I would say maybe of the decade, as far as astronomers are concerned. This kind of thing doesn't happen every day. So quite interesting there. One thing that people are a little worried about, because we've recently had all of these earthquakes. We had earthquakes in New York just a couple days ago, and so people are all worried about this. Some of the people talking about that are talking about this, that the majority of the rainfall that we've had has happened on this New Madrid fault line across the United States, over which the eclipse is going to run tomorrow. And so this doesn't have, it's hard to make the connection, but the connection it makes is that people are also worried about earthquakes occurring after the eclipse, and we're going to see in a minute why that is. But people have said, hey, there's been a lot of rainfall along that fault line. Is that going to affect this in any ways? If there are earthquakes, will that make them worse? Will it change them in some way? What could happen? That's part of what people are talking about. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, that some people have noted that the rainfall we've had recently has all been along this New Madrid fault line. All right, and then we had this really strange information that came out just a couple days ago in the mainstream news, that the eclipse actually, by the way, it changed paths. I thought this was really amazing. The New York Post, USA Today, all reporting that the solar eclipse path of totality may shift or is different than they originally thought. I just think it's really amazing that could be the possibility. it's like, were they wrong? Was NASA wrong? Could they actually be wrong? I don't understand. So it's just amazing here on MSN.com, USA Today, Cincinnati.com, all these different news outlets of the mainstream media reporting that this path of totality is actually different than they thought it was. Apparently, it's not much in regards to how different it is as far as distance, but it's just interesting that it's even mentioned. Oh, we were wrong about the path. Yeah, I don't understand that really. All right, now we're to everybody's favorite part, the cicadas. So apparently there's going to be a huge spawning of cicadas, a twofold spawning according to the experts, where it's like two broods at the same time spawning. Should be more than we've probably ever experienced in the places that this is going to occur. You can see on this map that it spans over a lot of the kind of Mid-East, looks like Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Idaho, Indiana, all these places, Arkansas. So this is apparently going to be the worst area for the breeding, the spawning. I have to admit I'm in this area. So it's like, I really hope that it's not bad because I hate these bugs. I literally hate these bugs. Now, this was reported by a bunch of people online. A rare double brood 13 and 14 is what they're called. Brood 14 and 13, set to emerge during the same time in spring, this spring, for the first time in 221 years. That is a long time to wait for a double brood. Oh, goodness. And it's actually supposedly supposed to happen a few weeks after the eclipse, that the two broods of cicadas will emerge, and billions, according to their estimates, of bugs will cover parts of the U.S. Most will emerge in the southeastern U.S. And here's a little article that I thought was interesting. They say they're hypersexual zombie cicadas that are infected with sexually transmitted fungus expected to emerge. I'm sorry, that's zombie cicadas, hypersexual. It's great. There you go. All right, so there's the cicada report. Apparently it won't be tomorrow, but it will be soon after, a couple weeks from now. Now here's a really, really interesting report that I thought was, I hope this is not true, okay? So we'll click and watch this video together. Just pay attention to this. It's interesting, the perspective I had not heard anywhere else. I think it's pretty unique. So listen to this.
Two senior CIA agents believe they were targeted with a sophisticated microwave weapon while they were visiting Australia late last year. It's been reported the pair may have been attacked as part of a global campaign.
Both of the agents experienced sort of pressure on their head. They reported hearing a strange noise and a ringing in their ears. Both of them also became nauseous and dizzy.
I don't think any of them realized what a big deal it was until we started talking to people and telling them our stories.
The night of my event, March 17th, 2017, I was standing at the kitchen window. I was washing dishes. And in the midst of washing the dish, all of a sudden, I felt like I was being struck with something. And it was an overwhelming sense of anxiety, pressure, completely inexplicable, and then pain that I have never felt before in my life. All of a sudden, I heard what one of the security officers had said to someone else just a couple of days before. Look, we don't know what's happening, but if you think something's happening, get off the X. And I heard that in my head, get off the X. And it was almost like I had been unplugged and a spell was lifted, and I moved.
What we can't understand is why these people's brains look like that when they have no history of anything hitting them in the head.
possible symptoms of the mysterious illness called
Havana syndrome.
The mysterious neurological symptoms.
Havana syndrome can cause dizziness, nausea, even brain damage.
A covert sonic weapon.
I know a lot of people still see this as kind of a science fiction novel plot, but it's very, very real.
Okay, now this is bonkers because billions of bugs are going to emerge out of the ground on April the 8th.
Well, get ready, Chicago.
We're not talking about the eclipse. 2 broods of cicadas.
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 We're set to see billions, possibly even more cicadas this spring.
What makes this rather unusual is that both broods are emerging during the same year.
We used to call them locusts.
Are the children who've been impacted, both mine as well as many others. I personally know the parents of, I believe, 8 other children.
Persistent neurological symptoms are not the only fight these Americans have faced. Some of their early reports were dismissed as psychosomatic. One theory had it that the sound these victims heard during the incidents was actually a particular species of cicada.
All right, guys. So that to me was a really interesting perspective. So just if in case you missed it, what this YouTuber, I think, was trying to propose was that the Havana syndrome that has been spoken about on the mainstream news that some people have been attacked with. It's a weapon from the intelligence agencies like the CIA, etc. And they use it against people, and it essentially affects the mind in a certain place. They can aim it at a person. And when that happens, the people tend to hear a sound like cicadas in their head, really loud and painful. And so what I think is being proposed is that the eclipse would be an opportunity for them to project Havana syndrome across the entire nation on anyone watching the eclipse in the path of totality. And they will hear cicadas, and it will affect them by essentially harming their brains. Interesting proposal. I have no other information on this except this one person who kind of made this little connection. I'm not telling you that's what's going to happen. It's interesting though, isn't it? So yeah, it's just something to, I think, consider. All right, moving on. We do have, as you guys were mentioning, there's a lot of governmental organizations and schools and states, they're calling for a state of emergency, right? So I just started noting some of the ones I was finding online that were saying it's a state of emergency. For one, the governor of Indiana issued a state of emergency ahead of the solar eclipse, and Niagara Falls declared a state of emergency. And it says expectations that hundreds of thousands of tourists will visit that area to see the eclipse. Now, that's what they're all saying. They're mostly saying that it's because of the influx of people that they're expecting to view the eclipse that they're declaring the state of emergency. I think the thinking there is that it gives them extra powers to do things in a special situation that they may not normally have. So they're going ahead and declaring it ahead of the fact in case they have to really act quickly with, who knows, first responders types, police force, fire, whatever. Boerne, Texas is in a state of emergency. Texas, Travis County in a state of emergency. Oklahoma's McCurtain County, the city of Lago Vista, Texas. Lorain County, Ohio. Rutherford County Schools. Let's see. The Oklahoma National Guard is ready to assist McCurtain County. Oregon Department of Emergency Management is ready. Oswego County Health Department is ready. All these different places that are super on high alert or an emergency alert. Wyoming, a lot of different places mentioned here. St. Louis area schools are closed for the eclipse. The Travis County, Texas has declared a declaration of local disaster for the eclipse. And the U.S. Department of Transportation has a fact sheet on preparing for the eclipse. So there's all these places that obviously are seeing a serious issue, maybe with the influx of people watching the eclipse, maybe with something else. Do they have inside information we don't have that there may be something that will occur? Perhaps. I don't know. How would we know? But it is interesting that all these places are doing this ahead of this eclipse. Now, there is a report even in the mainstream news that there may be a mass death event at the April eclipse. Now, it's interesting that they would even say this, but their justification for saying this is that during this 2017 eclipse, they had a huge uptick in car crash deaths. They say more than 1,000 car crash deaths during that eclipse time because of all the people traveling to see it and moving about. So they're saying that that's why they expect there may be another mass death event, meaning, I guess, more fatal crashes. Fatal crashes, researchers warned in a research letter published Monday, March 25th in the Journal of Internal Medicine, JAMA Internal Medicine. So just an interesting report that made the circuit on the mainstream media. Now, to me, that is suspect, that the way they report it, it seems like the kind of thing that they wouldn't really want to mention other than trying to encourage people to stay safe while they're driving. And I don't know what help there is in telling the entire population that there could be a mass death event because of car crashes. It just doesn't seem to sit right with me. But, you can take it for what it's worth. U.S. intelligence officials have come out warning of violence targeting the mass gatherings days before this eclipse. The FBI and Homeland Security are increasingly worried about threats from ISIS and lone wolf attacks in the United States. So here's a quick little video on that.
Security warning right here in the U.S. from the FBI and Homeland Security, warning of potential threats to public gatherings, the timing of this and why they're concerned tonight. Here's our Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas with late reporting.
Tonight, FBI and Homeland Security officials are warning U.S. law enforcement about the potential for terror inspired by that deadly ISIS attack in Moscow targeting a concert hall. The concern, according to the bulletin, violence targeting mass gatherings such as sports stadiums, concert venues, or houses of worship in the United States. Law enforcement told to be on the lookout for any suspicious activity. The bulletin coming just days before millions will gather to watch the eclipse on Monday. Authorities say following the Moscow attack, ISIS and its supporters celebrated the assault and shared graphic and violent attack footage, the terror group calling for similar attacks in the United States.
I'm told U.S. law enforcement is being urged to take this bulletin seriously. Sources say ISIS remains a very real threat.
All right, so there's the warnings. This to me is a little scary, and I'll tell you why. It's because they mention ISIS and they mention the Moscow attack. Well, we know who was responsible for that, and it was in an indirect way. It was our own government responsible for those attacks. So for them to then tell us, hey, be aware, there's going to be a chance for ISIS attacks and stuff during this eclipse time, that worries me. It seems like projection. It seems like their own projection of something that they could be doing. I'm just telling you the way I feel about it. I'm being totally honest and transparent with you. It does worry me, that statement. But now astrologers are interested in this eclipse too, and they're very concerned, some of the astrologers, because they're saying, well, this eclipse is going to be in the wrong constellation. I don't know if you guys know anything about this. I thought it was interesting. They say it's going to be in the Pisces constellation, but not the Aries constellation like it's supposed to be, according to the astrologers. Well, I found out that in researching this just a little bit, that the reason is because the astrologers calculate those the signs of the zodiac and their date ranges according to a very old system. It's kind of set in stone where it doesn't really follow the actual movements of the sun and moon. So the Pisces time frame, the traditional approach that the astrologers use is that was from February 19th to March 20th. But in reality, based on the sun and moon and the movement of the stars, it's March 11th to April 18th. And that's why the astrologers are going like, hey, it's the wrong sign. We're under the wrong sign. It's because they don't calculate their signs correctly. So it actually is under the Pisces sign. If that matters to any of you, I don't think it matters to me. But you can see here that they just calculate the dates in an incorrect fashion. And there's a video on YouTube. I don't want to watch this, but it's according to the quote NASA experts, it's the Earth's precession that causes this. So according to this video, it's how the axis of the Earth tilts back and forth as it spins. I don't know. Sounded like mumbo jumbo to me, but regardless, just so you're aware, that's out there. All right. Just one note here. I ran across this, thought it was interesting. NASA predicts eclipses with the Saros cycle, not the globe mathematics. I just thought this was interesting. I have not researched this, but I found a person online as I was going through this information that was talking about that NASA actually does not use mathematics that they say they do to predict the eclipse cycle. They use what's called the Saros cycle. Apparently is a very ancient Babylonian cycle determiner for the eclipse times. And so I haven't researched this at all. It's something I want to look into. And if you're interested, you could definitely research it. It's called the Saros cycle. I will be looking more into that. So as far as the NASA project Apep, and we talked about that they had literally, Forbes said that they named it after the serpent deity of Egypt. I found it interesting that in Egyptian mythology, this is actually the same being as Set or Apophis. And Apophis, of course, was from a character on the series Stargate, SG-1, if you ever watched that. I watched through a lot of those seasons. I got bored towards about the 8th season, so I stopped watching it. But anyway, it was a pretty interesting show. But yes, Apophis in that show had a spaceship with a pyramid. Here's his symbol that was on the middle of everyone's heads. It, of course, looks like an eye with a serpent. His followers and his minions and soldiers all look like serpents. And he, of course, is here. And he has the evil eye. So don't look at his stink eye if you want to live. So, but it's interesting that this deity, by the way, I wanted to mention, the reason that many of the Egyptian gods have two names, so as we said, that Apep or Apophis, that's actually the same name. The reason it's also called Set is because Set is the more ancient name. There's, in Egyptian historiology, there's two kingdoms, like an ancient kingdom about the time of like the Hebrews, and ancient Egypt, which would be like the time of Abraham and Moses and all that. And then there's the newer kingdom, which Egypt was still in power even up to the time of Rome. And when Christ was walking the earth, Egypt was still there. It wasn't as powerful, but it was all still there. That was the new kingdom. And so like the name Apep or Apophis was the new kingdom name for this pagan god of Egypt, whereas Set was the ancient name. Just so you're aware of why there's so many names for these gods, that's why. But anyway, this was interesting. This, again, why would NASA use these names? It just is ridiculous that they do this. Now we have the Devil Comet. And by the way, for those of you on the call, they're listening and you're like, wait, I know this is all just we haven't even scratched the surface yet. We're getting towards the part where we actually are going to talk about more of the conspiratorial aspects. I had that towards the bottom. So just know that we're getting there. The Devil Comet is supposed to be aligned with this eclipse. You saw in the picture I showed of the planet alignments that this Devil Comet was shown in there. It's in perfect alignment with the planets, and it will be in the sky during the eclipse. It's only, the comet, known for its distorted shape because it has horns like a devil, recent explosive outbursts, it orbits the sun once every 71.2 years, according to Astronomy magazine. Okay. Here's a picture of that supposedly horned comet. And so here's an amazing picture of people in the ISS telling you all about the Devil Comet with an ice volcano in it and horns. Don't they look nice? Isn't her hair well kept? You know, I find it funny that these people on the ISS, these women, every woman on the ISS has an afro. And I bet in real life they don't have afros. I bet what it is that they are told that when they're on camera, they need to have their hair like this to demonstrate the zero gravity. Because they have to demonstrate it. They're not actually in zero gravity. But her hair is pasted up like an afro for no apparent reason. Every single woman you see in the ISS, it's the same. And as they move, it's like stiff and stuck. You can tell that there's like 100 pounds of hair gel in it to keep it that way. So it's just kind of, to me, funny. When I saw this, I was like, oh, there's the clowns again telling me about the Devil Comet. Yeah, well, I trust you for sure. All right. Now, it's interesting. This comet is interesting to a lot of people because in 1811, the same thing happened where there was a comet in the sky with the solar eclipse. And that following that event, now, mind you, it wasn't right at the time of the event, but after the event, within a few months, some of the biggest earthquakes in American history followed that event. And here it is. Here's the different articles. A strange story of this is called Tecumseh's comet, or Tecumseh's comet. Excuse me, I always pronounce that wrong. Tecumseh, the Indian. It's Tecumseh's comet, the Black Sun prophecy, and the New Madrid earthquakes. So that's exactly what happened at that time in 1811. Now, it was actually in September of 1811 when that occurred, not in April. It wasn't the same day or anything like that. But it was interesting that all this occurred. The New Madrid earthquakes of that year happened a little later in the year. After September, it was from December of that year to February of 1812 that these earthquakes occurred in the settlement of New Madrid, Missouri. But they were some of the strongest ever experienced on our continent. And they were only beaten by some quakes that were 9.2s that leveled Anchorage, Alaska in 1964. That was the only one on record that was bigger. So interesting stuff. Can a solar eclipse trigger an earthquake? According to the U.S. Geological Survey, recent studies indicate a correlation between high ocean tides and earth tides and earthquakes on shallow thrust faults and undersea subduction zones. Interesting. So apparently they are saying it could, but we aren't sure. I love it when the scientists say, well, yes, but we're not really sure. So that's what they say all too often about many different things. The solar eclipse occurred on September 17th. It was called Constitution Day. It was interesting. And Thomas Jefferson actually recorded this eclipse event and comet in his journal. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but here is part of that journal that on the 16th of December, 1811. Oh, this is about the earthquake, actually. We were visited by a violent shock of an earthquake, accompanied by very awful noise resembling loud but distant thunder, but more hoarse and vibrating, which was followed in a few minutes by the complete saturation of the atmosphere with sulfurous vapor. So a smelly smell came out of this earthquake. It's very interesting, causing total darkness. So apparently the vapor, the smoke that came out of the ground because of the earthquake caused total darkness in the area. It said the screams of the affrighted inhabitants running to and fro, not knowing where to go or what to do, the cries of the birds and beasts of every species, the cracking of the trees falling, and the roaring of the Mississippi, the current of which was retrograde, meaning the Mississippi ran backwards for a few minutes, owing, as is supposed, to an eruption in its bed, formed a scene truly horrible. So amazing things happened during that earthquake, in December of 1811 that was, of course, had followed this eclipse comet event. There's a picture of good old Thomas Jefferson, but that's just more information about the same. So I just wanted to mainly go over that so you guys were aware that did occur. But again, you know, if we were to expect any kind of similarity to what's going to happen now, then any earthquakes that would come as a result of this eclipse and comet passing over apparently would probably be months away, a few months away. In the case of the 1811, it's 3 months difference between when the comet and the eclipse occurred to when the earthquake occurred. So something to keep in mind. Now this, a lot of this is the story of Tecumseh's comet. I'm not going to read the entire story there. I think you guys get the picture. You can definitely look it up for yourself. There's Tecumseh, and there's an earthquake, or an eclipse. All right. Now, a couple people were watching Fox News, and they pulled this clip, thought it was interesting. Listen to this real quick.
Strongest earthquake in 140 years, John. Look at all of that. And it's not over yet because we've got the eclipse earthquake coming up on Monday. As Deborah Ross was telling us, it's going to be a transformative experience for anybody who is in the area of totality.
So that was a pretty interesting thing that someone caught in the Fox newscast. He said the eclipse earthquake. Now, I think you could say he was being, you know, allegorical or metaphorical in his reference, saying that the eclipse itself was a, quote, earthquake of sorts because it was so big and so well known about and people are so interested. But, you know, it is an interesting Freudian slip either way. Now, something else that has been reported recently I thought was interesting at the least is that Mount Aetna over in Italy is blowing smoke rings up into the sky at this moment. And I thought that was just interesting. I don't know what it might have to do or not have to do with this eclipse, but because it's a ring, it looks like a ring of totality. It's interesting. Here's a little video. That's cool how it's puffing those little rings out as they go. So weird. All right, so I thought that was just too cool not to show. So there you go. Mount Aetna is puffing rings at the moment. Now, of course, you guys all are aware that CERN is starting up at this time. Whether it's on the day of or what they're going to do with it, it's hard to tell. CERN is about to test the world's most powerful particle accelerator during April's solar eclipse to search for invisible matter that secretly powers our universe. Which is funny, you know, if they're talking about dark matter, I've heard it said that they already have debunked dark matter and said, well, we're not sure dark matter actually exists. You know, you never know with these guys. What are they going to say next? You know, they seem to waffle back and forth because they're, I think, telling a story. They don't know. They're trying to just pull a narrative out of their butt. And so they tell you different things every day. It's supposed to commence its experiment on the 8th. So it is actually supposed to start up on the 8th, aiming to uncover dark matter. By the way, I will just say this. CERN, for all intents and purposes, according to the mainstream and what they're supposed to be doing, has been a failure at every single level of its research. All the God particles and all the things they've looked for, they have literally failed at finding everything they said they were setting out to find. So to me, it's like, well, they sure spent a hell of a lot of money not being successful. And apparently, to me, it sounds like they're doing something there that they're not telling us, because that could be the only reason I could see if I was a rich person with billions of dollars sitting around and I was setting out to build something like this. There'd be no way in heck that I would do that unless I knew it was going to be successful. I was going to get a return on my investment. So what are they getting a return on? It's definitely not the particles that they're proposing that they are smashing. It must be on something else. And of course, we have videos of people doing all sorts of rituals, sacrificial rituals in front of the Shiva statue in front of the Cern facility in Geneva, Switzerland. All that kind of stuff. It's hard to believe the mainstream narrative when they do that kind of stuff, and when everything they do from a technological standpoint seems to fail. Yeah. Now, if you're not aware, the Cern logo itself actually, not only does it look like a 666, but it looks like an eclipse. So that is an interesting little connection there that I hadn't seen before or thought of. But their logo looks exactly like the sun and the black sun moving together. Very interesting. Now here's a little video. Now we're starting to get into some of the more conspiratorial things. I thought this was a good video to explain what I'm seeing from the evangelical right Protestants on this eclipse. So take a listen to this real quick.
There was an eclipse that took place 7 years ago, went right across America. There's another eclipse coming right across America. It'll make a perfect cross on the center of the nation.
God made the first sign go through 7 cities named Salem on August 21st, 2017.
The word Salem, according to the Bible, is peace. So God is saying 7 times he offered peace. The next eclipse is coming. It goes through several cities here, particularly Nineveh. Nineveh. So first we have 7 cities called Salem, and now 7 cities called Nineveh. 7 and 7. 7 cities called Salem, 7 cities called Nineveh, and 7 years apart. Right in the center of the cross is a city called Rapture. What is God's message? He's coming very, very soon.
What is that? Dr.Theo Wolmarans. I've never heard of him, but I like his voice. It's just an interesting video. I thought it explained well probably what an evangelical dispensational view of this is, that these 7 cities called Nineveh, 7 cities called Salem. Some people have talked about the city named Rapture and a city named Jonah. And of course, then people dive into the sign of Jonah, meaning, you know, being in the belly of the whale and all this stuff. There's lots of interpretations of that. I scraped a bunch of these slides off of a video that I saw, but it's more of the same information, just telling us about the eclipses and the cities. Now, I will say this about the cities, particularly the claim of the 7 cities called Nineveh. I have heard people say that they have gone in search of these 7 cities that people are claiming and not found them. Meaning they're like, they don't exist. There's not actually 7 cities named Nineveh that exist on the path of totality. So that's an interesting thing. I haven't done the work to research it myself. If you're interested in that, I suggest you do it. Find if you can find those cities. And even the seven cities of Salem in the last eclipse, I didn't actually do the research there. So this is more about just showing you what people are saying than it is about me spending a ton of time on this, because I have an opinion on all this, and I'll kind of share that at the end. But I thought it was interesting. However, some people are doing some looking, and they found some very famous sites in the path of totality for this eclipse. Now, these famous sites are like what you're going to see on your screen here. For instance, Eagle Pass, the Uvalde school shooting, the Waco massacre is right on the path of totality. The JFK assassination is within the path of totality. Bill Clinton's birthplace, Rose Law Firm Whitewater scandal happened in the path of totality. The Jonesboro school shooting happened in the path. The Padua school shooting. Mike Pence's birthplace, the Kent State Massacre, East Palestine train derailment was in the path of totality, the Buffalo mass shooting, and the Finger Lakes that we see tattooed on the back of Hunter Biden himself are in the path of totality for this eclipse. So I thought this was just super interesting. I don't know what to say about it other than, wow, it piques my interest. There's no determination I can make from this, right? Other than it's interesting. So I found another one. Let's see if there's anything different about this. No, this is the same map that's mentioned above, so I don't think we'll go into any of that. Yeah, there's nothing additional here. Now, this is an interesting statement that this is the first time since 1776, the founding of the United States, that a total solar eclipse has passed over only the U.S. and no other country. Interesting. So the complete path of the eclipse is only over the United States and is not over any other country. And that apparently hasn't happened since 1776. Very, very strange coincidences, I will say. The next time that this will occur is in 2316. I don't know that we'll be here for that, so who cares? All right. Now, of course, people are saying, well, the path of the eclipses makes an Aleph and a Tav over the United States. Okay, maybe if you want to, you can do that. You can say yes. I mean, if I go back enough years with paths of eclipses, I might be able to paint any picture I wanted over the United States, but I'm just saying, this to me is like I'm not sure that this is anything special, but people are always, saying this stuff. I wanted to mention that the Wiccans, the New Agers, are really excited about this eclipse. They have all sorts of articles out all over the internet right now about different rituals that you should perform during the eclipse. And some are saying you shouldn't really perform rituals during the eclipse because the eclipse is such a big event of itself. But they do, of course, give you tips on, not charging your energy crystals. And so they say here, like, eclipse season is not the best time to perform spells or manifestation rituals because the universe is essentially stepping in to make adjustments to your life. So this is the time for the eclipse, apparently, according to the Wiccans, that the universe is saying, here's how it's going to be, and it changes things. So that's an interesting thought. That's not necessarily a specifically Wiccan concept, but that's actually a very ancient, esoteric, and just in general religious thought that eclipses signal a change, a big change. So that's an interesting little tidbit there from the witches of the world. In New Jersey, Wiccans and witches have big plans for this supercharged energy in this eclipse. Here's one, a very nice looking Wiccan herself, helping us with some tarot cards. Great, thank you. And here's another one. Megan McSweeney, watch out for her. All right. Now, people are saying that Rosh Chodesh, Nisan, the first month of the Jewish calendar, the Hebrew calendar of 2024, begins on April 8th. This is what people are saying. However, I looked it up, and it looks like maybe you could say that, but that's actually the end of Adar, and the beginning of Nisan is the next day, is the 9th. So yeah, I guess it fits, but that's just an interesting little coinkydink too, that the Hebrew New Year is starting the day after this eclipse. Very cool. Now, we need to be aware that the red heifers are ready. The red heifers are ready, okay? The Texas red heifers. And I'm referring to the cows in this picture. They are to be slaughtered. And according to Daily Wire journalist Cassie Akiva, the red heifers are now actually in Israel. They are being prepared for the slaughter. And they claim that this ritual is necessary for the coming of their Messiah. And of course, this person who posted this says this is the Antichrist. They seek to rebuild the third temple, and Pax Judaica, peace of Judah, will rule for a day like a week. And it says, this person says that they are going to bring war when this happens. I don't know. This is just what this Shadow of Ezra posted. Now, the Shadow of Ezra, by the way, if you find him on X and if you find him on Telegram, he is an anchor in the storm. I will just say he is definitely intelligence. I can't count the number of times he's told us about things that happened prior to their happening. For instance, the war in Ukraine, he knew about it months ahead of time. He knew about the Boeing aircraft failures that have been happening over the past few months. He predicted it. He predicted it like last fall before it ever started happening. So I'm not saying he's any kind of prophet, but he has intelligence that we don't have. So this guy is a really good one to follow if you are interested in kind of staying ahead of things, getting a preliminary view of things before they happen. He is definitely in the know. All right. So I wanted to mention too that the mainstream media is bringing out a ton of reporting on the misinformation about the eclipse. Okay, so you see here are these links. I'm not going to go to all these, but like Rolling Stone magazine, the far right is crawling with eclipse conspiracy theories. So to me, this is interesting because the mainstream would only do this if they wanted to kind of squelch something, right? And so they're wanting to squelch the far right having conspiracy theories. So of course they put a picture of Alex Jones up and they start saying, well, these crazy conspiracy theorists, these crazy right-wingers, they all think there's things that are going to happen. It says here, the latest onslaught of misinformation began with InfoWars host Alex Jones. He posted a clip with the caption, "Major events surrounding the April 8th total solar eclipse. Masonic rituals planned worldwide to usher in the New World Order." Now, I actually have this video. It's not too long. It's really short. So we may actually watch this in just a second, just so you're aware, just to see what was said. Because again, guys, this is about information. It doesn't matter who is saying it necessarily, but having more information is better than less information. So I hope you realize that. It's not like I'm promoting some of these people that we're watching. I'm not promoting the dispensational view of eschatology. I'm not promoting Alex Jones, for instance. It's just information. We have to take it for what it's worth and according to whose mouth it's coming out of, contextually. But you can see this report on misinformation is in Newsweek. It's on Snopes. It's on King 5. It's on USA Today. It's on sci-fi.com. It's on factcheck.org. So the entire media establishment has come out to report against right-wing conspiracies on the eclipse. So I just think it's worth noting. It's noteworthy. You should know that they are attacking it, so there must be something to it. So here's Alex Jones' take. He had a little interview with a guy who actually said the things that they are accusing Alex Jones of. It's not Alex Jones, but you'll see in this video real quick what I'm talking about.
I use the Hebrew calendar, okay? On the Hebrew calendar, guys, make people
calls. I've just been so busy. My phone's been overwhelmed. I still love you. AlexJonesVideoGame.com. We love you, Andrew. We love everybody. I'm going to get with you soon, but I'm glad we're talking now here on air.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you so much, Alex. Love you too, bro. And there's a couple of things that are just wild to me right now. First of all, Ryan Garcia being here and talking about the Bohemian Grove. Now, I didn't want to go to this first, but he's talking about it. Literally, we're making.
I can't hear Andrew. Just saying.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you sound good. I can hear you.
We can hear you loud and clear, Andrew. Keep going.
We're literally working on the Bohemian Grove level for the Alex Jones game. So, yeah, AlexJonesGame.com. If people don't know, we made the top trending video game on Steam, the biggest video game platform in the world. It's super fun. AlexJonesGame.com. But I really was interested in the topic, too. Especially it's April 8th and they're freaking out. So Cliff was talking about a different calendar than mine. I use the Hebrew calendar, okay? On the Hebrew calendar, April 8th is the last day of the year. The new moon of Aries is the first month of the year, actually. People think Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year, but actually the first month in the calendar is Aries, Nisan, and that's on April 8th. And because April 8th is this day they're freaking out about. It's the last day of the year. That's the day that you can inject energy for the new year. They want to, like, if you look at it, all the NFL drafts, the NBA drafts, they're usually on the new moon or the full moon of various months in the Hebrew calendar. So these high-level people, they know what they're doing. They use these dates. If they're
By the way,
freaking out
there's
about
no
April
doubt.
8th,
There's no doubt that the global elite are obsessed with the Jewish calendar and Jewish mysticism and King Solomon. The Masons are all based on that, and we're pretty good friends. You give me some books on it, so you're kind of an expert on this. What do you think's really going on here?
I'm saying that it's the last day of the year, so for them, it's their chance to inject the energy they want for the new year. If you look at a bunch of astrologers across different fields of astrology, they're all saying the energy is shifting. So the globalists, obviously, they want to make a big push for evil, negative energy in the new year. What do? Destabilize, make people afraid, because that's what they want to push into the new year. So any kind of crisis or fear they want people to have on April 8th, it's because...
And Andrew, I want to get you on as a guest about this, not the video game, because we've had dinner and stuff. You're astoundingly smart on this. And they do it on other people's New Year's, too. I notice every year at the end of the, quote, Christian calendar or Roman calendar, they always have some big negative thing right during New Year's, too, on that calendar. And they do it in the Chinese calendar, too. Have you noticed that?
Yep. It's because these are all different systems. They all have powerful energy. And so for the globalists, they know they want to inject the seed of every new year with negativity, because that's what they harvest. They want to take all of our energy, so they have to implant us with any kind of negativity they can. So absolutely, they are very aware of the astrology. You know, in the newspapers, they put nonsense horoscopes to make it look like childish or foolish to people. But then at the very highest levels, they know exactly what this stuff is used for.
By the way, let me just stop you. Ronald Reagan, all the world leaders, Hitler, Lenin, Stalin, Churchill, the king, I mean, they're all do everything off of it.
Yeah.
So you could say it's not real, but they think it's real. So it is real because they're trying to arrange everything around it.
It's crazy how, when you look at these leaders, the most famous example that comes to mind is Rasputin, how the more powerful people come in corrupt societies, almost the more superstitious they become, whether it's Hitler or the Rasputin stuff. It's almost when you get to a certain level of power and you know that you're in a corrupt system and everybody wants to stab you in the back, you start turning in weird directions to find answers spiritually.
Well, I mean, I forget, Hitler's astrologer was Jewish. His last name was Wolf. And they literally held him captive, but he got free after World War II. And when he told them stuff they didn't like, which ended up turning out being true, they almost killed him. But literally, Hitler would not do anything unless this guy told him.
Really? Don't kill the messenger.
Well, they didn't kill him, but he almost got killed. Were you aware of that, Andrew?
No, that's news to me. That's a new one for me.
I knew his chauffeur was Jewish and that he was made an honorary.
Whatever. It's all just totally crazy. Wow. I mean, because they're obsessed with it and they're in power. But you're right. It's different systems, but there is something based to it. What do you think's really going on, Andrew?
I think that okay. Let me reference John Dutoit. I don't know if you know him. You should. He's the director of Hoaxed, great documentary. He went and filmed you. He's a total genius too, and he said that this year, talking about 2024, not the Hebrew calendar like I am, but this guy senses the energy. He reads the signs, and he said like this year is a year for karma, and I see all the signs of it. I see it too. Shmuley being on your show the other day, it was the wildest energy, and it's just like everybody getting to see who he really is. That guy has been doing such crazy things, pretending to represent the Jewish community for such a long time, and now everybody sees who he is. He was revealed. So the karmic debt is coming due for so many people. This can be a great year of revelation, of great change, of great things happening.
Well, it's funny you say that, because all I'm getting is revealed, even though they're trying to counter it, is the fact that I'm for real. And you're right, all the other fake people are being exposed.
So with that, we'll end it. Yeah, that's an interesting comment by Alex there. Anyway, it's just an interesting take. You know, it gives you, I think, a correct perspective that the elite do see these shifts, these eclipses, different events astronomically as opportunities for ritual. I do believe that the elite are probably performing all sorts of stuff in the background that we don't see, horrible things in the dark of night, because of this eclipse. So I just want you guys to be aware of that. I do believe that is true, 100%. Now, whether that means anything we are going to see in our, experience on that day or not, who knows? But I do believe that for the elite, for the esoterists, the non-Christian pagan Satan worshipers, this is an important time for them, or they think it is. So, and they also in that clip, by the way, echoed the sense that this is a shift. This could be a good shift in a way to something where karma is dispensed and people get their just desserts, what they deserve and what has been held back for so long. People get prosecuted for evil, that justice starts to come. You never know, but to me it's like this could be an interesting turning point. Now, this guy online, Dom Luker, he's on X also. Interesting guy. I don't know how much I trust what he says, but he's put some interesting stuff. NASA firing the 3 sounding rockets. And let's see, why did I put this up here? The first round of apophis was launched on the annular solar eclipse on the 2023 eclipse from White Sands Missile Range. A second round is tomorrow from Wallops Island, Virginia. And he says that there will be rituals performed during the April 8th eclipse. Masonic, Satanic, Esoteric, Gnostic, Brotherhood of the Snake, and other occult-like groups will be performing. So that just, whether he knows what he's talking about or not, he's thinking the same thing that a lot of us are thinking about this. So it's just interesting that is what's being said. Now, if any of you guys are interested in the fact that the TV show, the animated show, The Simpsons, seems to always predict weird things. It seems to have things in them that then come true years later. Well, this is what The Simpsons says about the eclipse. I just thought it was interesting.
For centuries, man has been ruled by science and industry, but that era is drawing to a close. We stand on the cusp of a new epoch, one of prophecy, puzzles, and signs in the sky. And that epoch begins today.
Our top story, today Springfield will experience a rare total eclipse of the sun. A solar eclipse is like a woman breastfeeding in a restaurant. It's free, it's beautiful, but under no circumstances should you look at it. We recommend using a homemade camera obscura, fashioned from an ordinary shoebox and paper towel tube. This was supposed to be pre-made. Fine, I'll do it myself. Where's the end of the freaking tape? Forget it, we'll do it next week.
The eclipse is today.
There's an eclipse when I say there's an eclipse!
Okay, people, we've hit penumbra. Brace yourself for umbra. I'm gonna see it first.
No, I'm gonna see it first.
Hit the road, you big load.
My space toy!
Oh, it's okay, homie. You can have my viewer. But, Mom, you'll miss the eclipse. There'll be another one in North Yemen in 2027.
All right, that's pretty much it, guys. I think Marge ends up looking at the sun and then gets blinded. That's all that happens after that. So that kind of shows you, I don't know. According to The Simpsons, then they link the downfall of the United States to the eclipse in that video. I don't know. We have yet to see, don't we? Now, here's another really interesting thing. When we talk about these paths, we saw earlier that a lot of people in the Christian sector are saying, well, that looks like an Aleph or a Tav. Well, it's interesting that if you take the NASA logo and you flip it backwards, it makes the same shape as the eclipse paths across the nation. The two coming from the left and then the one that crosses them. The two coming from the left and this orbital thing crosses them. Now, you also see that in the shoes of ASICS Shoe Company. Their their design on their shoes looks like these eclipse paths, perhaps. And then Reebok also seems to have the same kind of design. Is that a reference to the eclipse, or is it not? Your guess is as good as mine. But it is interesting because you see those symbols and you wonder, what the heck does that mean? Well, it's interesting. I don't know what to say other than it looks similar to the paths of the eclipse. Now, I found this guy. He's one that I have followed just because he's interesting. He tends to post things that are conspiratorial in nature. Vincent Kennedy, his Twitter handle is VincentCrypt46. But he says, I don't want to alarm anyone. However, April 8th, they will attempt to open a portal to make contact during this eclipse. If you are looking for something to happen, you will be disappointed. If something does happen, you will be disappointed. For this event, let's collectively manifest a new beginning, not one based on waiting, but rather on doing. So this guy, he, by the way, he typically has a little bit of a new age slant on his view of spirituality and reality. But it's interesting. He says, assuming he knows anything, we're not sure. But he says, if you're looking for something to happen that day, you will be disappointed. He also says, if something does happen, you will be disappointed. Now that to me sounds like he's kind of hinting that if something does happen, it's going to be negative. And so that makes me wonder, in regards to the warnings, the emergency declarations in all these states and places all around the country, and then the warnings that the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI are giving about ISIS attacks. I'll be honest with you guys. I think that there's a possibility there will be a false flag attack during the eclipse tomorrow. I'm not sure about it, but it's just a hunch based on all these different little tidbits that people are sending out, including the mainstream media. I hope that doesn't happen, but it seems like something they would do. And it's sad that, we have that distrust of our government and our intelligence agencies. And it's sad that we have to go there, but it has happened so many times now that it's not even a question of whether it could happen or not. Now, there's another person on some of these more conspiratorial threads that says that there's intel coming out about a possible attempt to make a portal open during the eclipse and let in alien groups. Now, to her, everything's an alien. This Kerry Cassidy lady, she sees aliens, I see demons, right? So we can interpret it the way we need to. But she says there's supposedly an attempt that's going to be made to open a portal during the eclipse and to attack via Project Bluebeam, which is supposed to be a fake alien invasion scenario, etc., etc. So she mentions all of this, and I just think it's another interesting take. We need to be aware it's being said. This lady, she interviews all sorts of people that are considered to her whistleblowers. Some of them I think are legitimate, some are not. And so it's anybody's guess as to where she's getting the information. Is it trustworthy? I don't know. I would give it about a 10% chance of being trustworthy in any regard, but this part about the portal is possibly suspect because of CERN and the things we do know about that facility. So it's something to think about. Now, this same lady interviews a man named Richard Allen Miller, and he says this about the possibilities of tomorrow.
Happen. But the study with the dot suggests that it's going to happen in late March or early April. There's going to be a major earthquake-like shift in continental plates that will change geography significantly. And the one I'm guessing, I don't know. Okay. March, April 2024. Excuse me. Now
So anyway, I won't play any more of that, but he definitely says he thinks whoever this guy is, Richard Allen Miller, according to her, this is a scientist, physicist, so you never know. Now, one interesting website, if you guys are aware, I used to see it back in the day all the time, the US Debt Clock website. Well, they posted on their X feed this image. Says, turn on liberty and justice to the new kingdom. And they see the new America as being a Christian kingdom, obviously, with the symbol of the fish. And then they show the alignment of the planets and the constellation of the Virgin and Leo. And they show the eclipse paths that across the United States. And it says at the bottom, who is like the Lord our God who dwells on high. So you can tell from that the people who run the US Debt Clock website, and that website's been there for years, like a decade or more, I don't know. It's just interesting, all the things that have been posted by this site, and they believe that this is something that is going to lead to a change in America that's going to be for the better. And I must say that I tend to agree with them in the long run. The change in America that is coming is for the better. Now, I just went ahead and threw some Q stuff on. I know a lot of people get all upset about no Q stuff. Q is bad, blah, blah, blah. Well, this isn't actually Q. These posts here are from a website. It's qofficial.net, if I believe. I think that's the link. But it has had a counter on there for a long time now, for over 6 months or more, about these different things. And I just thought it was interesting, the things they are posting. Again, it's another source of information you should at least consider. And these are in order of when I snapped them. They trail back for about a month that I've been watching this just to see what it's saying each day. It says on this one, this is the last black sun, the last eclipse. That's an interesting statement. The final countdown. Then a solar flash, 2024, 3 days darkness, a billion cicadas. By the way, this a billion cicadas, this post was, let me see, when was that? That was on March 20th. That was well before I had heard anything about cicadas that they posted this. So I'm just saying it's interesting that has been said and was said before all of this started, really. No cell phones or GPS, the devil comet, expect the unexpected. So that was all said on March 20th. That's a ways back. And then this one is similar, except it adds in, by the way, it adds in no school or work. So that was an interesting, different permutation. Then it said April showers, the noise is coming, no one is safe in the public eyes, the switch. So this is interesting. The noise is coming. That just reminded me of the cicada issue and that little video we saw on the Havana syndrome. Interesting. I'm not saying there's anything there. I'm just saying it's interesting connections. And then no one is safe in the public eyes. The switch, to me, talks about this possibility that we may be shifting into a time period where the evil elite in the public space are going to be called out for what they have done. And they are going to be exposed in a big way. We've just seen this with P. Diddy and other people like him. So I'm just saying, it's interesting to think about. Now, this one came out just recently. I believe, when was this? This one was from just 2 days ago, 3 days ago. It said, do not look at the solar eclipse. So I'm not going to tell you shouldn't look at the solar eclipse. All I'm going to show is this and say, hey, he said, don't look at the solar eclipse. I can't tell you what it means or if it's actually dangerous. Now, some people have been pushing this Q post lately because it says the world will soon understand. It mentions the armor of God, and it was on April 8th of 2020. Now, to me, this is one of the things that I don't like about the Q community. I don't think they're bad people, but a lot of the Q community is using and abusing the Q post in ways it was never meant to be used. For instance, this one, it has no reference whatsoever to an eclipse or anything else. Now, the time delta from one year to the next, perhaps it's significant, perhaps it's not, but really this is of no use to me. This is absolutely of no use to me. In fact, the Q originally posted that only after things happened would this stuff make sense. He said it was not to be used as a prophetic tool. Yeah, that's how most of the Q community has used the Q posts and abused them. The Q posts in and of themselves are an amazing array of information, and everyone should probably take a look at them. The real ones, not what people say about them. But anyway, just to say that. Now here's a couple videos. I think we may, I'm tempted to leave these behind for now because of our time. Yeah, we're going to leave these behind. I think most of what we have talked about already has covered these. So let's move forward here. Now this same person, Shadow of Ezra, who I follow religiously, not in a bad way, but in a good way because he has good information. He says that Cern and Solar Eclipse on April 8th, a false flag invisible to the eye, but visible to your soul. Now, to me, that's interesting. He, and again, I trust what he says. Now, sometimes it's encoded. It's a little veiled. So it's not like we can take everything he says absolutely literally, but he's been right so many times. He says that this is a false flag and it's going to be invisible to your eye, but it's going to be visible to your soul. So something apparently, according to him too, is changing. And here's a couple other things. When he posted that, by the way, he posted this video. And of course, if you know anything about this video, it is a segment from the opening of the Gotthard base tunnel in Switzerland. It's actually not too far from Geneva, Switzerland, where CERN is, but it's an underground tunnel, one of the longest in the world. And they had this ritual there, and if you haven't seen it, it's amazingly pagan and horrifying. But they had this ritual where they had this man dressed up as a goat there when they opened that tunnel years ago. And so to me, this says, well, he is at least saying that this sounds like it is a false flag for the elite. They are trying some things at this time, this moment in time. And the ritual aspect of that seems to be a part of it. Now, he says here, some people are starting to prepare for the eclipse. You can see in the video, they have walkie-talkies, extra fuel, batteries, generators, extra food. While there is nothing wrong with being prepared, in my opinion, nothing physical will happen on that day. Rather, something spiritual will occur. It will be invisible to the naked eye, but visible to the soul. So that, to me, is a really interesting take and something we should be aware of. This is kind of how I feel is probably true. The day of, there will be nothing specific in regards to the eclipse that will be manifested, that will be seen. That it'll be just a day as any other, and we'll get information about the eclipse. But I really feel like that's what we should expect. He also ended up posting this shot, which was an eclipse and a black swan. You can take that as you would. I don't know if you guys have seen the post from Auntie. She is an interesting person. She reminds me of one of my relatives, actually. But she says some interesting things about the eclipse. If you've seen her, I don't know if you've seen her. She's pretty fun to listen to. She has some interesting takes. But she's saying most of the same things we've already gone over. I'll play just a little bit of this for you.
This is going to be a big day, isn't it? Not only will the eclipse happen on April 8th, but so will a lot of other things. Hang on to your britches, just because it's about to get real. Not only will there be a solar eclipse, which still doesn't sit right with me because it's supposed to be in Aries, but it's somehow stuck in Pisces. I'm going to do a video about a certain song and how I feel like it correlates with the fact that this eclipse will be stuck in Pisces. I'll stay tuned. That'll be a big deep dive for you later today. It will also cause the Aleph and the Tav to be created over America, the last 3 eclipses, and it will go over 7 cities named Nineveh.
All right, so she says a lot of things we've already gone over, so I won't continue to play her video there, but she's an interesting cat. It looks like her handle on TikTok is Auntie_Coolette, if you want to look for her. I saw an interesting video by Theology Ed channel on YouTube. Now, this guy, he's not my favorite. I'll just say it that way. I think a lot of stuff he talks about is it's just not of interest to me. He kind of goes on tangents that I'm not too crazy about, but I went through his video on the eclipse. One interesting point he made was at marker 123. He said, the eclipse is 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days from the August 21, 2017 eclipse. And I actually did this check, and it is true. This eclipse is 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days from that eclipse. Now, you have to count it funky, because if you go to like an online tool and search for the time between the two, it'll of course count an extra month or two instead of the 6 weeks. So it comes out as 6 years, 7 months, and some days, and 6 days, whatever. But if you count it with the weeks in there, it is 6666. Very interesting. He said that this is also, April 8th is the anniversary of the day celebrated by Thelemists, Luciferians, when Lucifer, or Aiwass, began revealing the Book of Law to Aleister Crowley. In it was proclaimed an arrival of a new stage of spiritual evolution of humanity, the Aeon of Horus. The book contains 3 chapters which were written down April 8th, 9th, and 10th within 1 hour each in Cairo, Egypt in 1904. There's an intro page to his Book of the Law. Of course, you see the 2 pillars of Joach and Boaz, and the Egyptian symbol of the sun god. So it has all the right references to Freemasonry and esotericism. And interestingly enough, in Crowley's tarot deck, he replaced the card for Judgment, the 20th tarot card, with his own, which was an enlightenment or a rebirth of Horus. Now, I want to make the point here that the elite, the Luciferians, who I believe are mostly Thelemists, I believe Aleister Crowley's religion became the religion of the elite in the past century. They were already Luciferians, but this sealed it. Like, this gave them a format. And what I believe is that they see this change that we're talking about right now as a change for them to make. I believe that if they had had their way in the last, 7-8 years, that they would have, at this eclipse, they would have seen this as the eclipse of Satan's rule over the world. The change from whatever it is now to the rule of Satan over this world. I truly believe that's what they think. And they may still think it, but what reality is going to happen is that their precious eclipse is going to throw us into a time when they are destroyed from top to bottom. And so I truly feel like that's what we're looking at. And it's they're going to keep saying what they say. Of course, they think it's their kingdom coming into power. Essentially the start of a new dark ages where the iron fist of Rome ruled over the people. The Catholic Roman Church and the Popery, the Papists, ruled over all of humanity in Europe. That dark age is essentially what they're looking for now. They want a dark age now where they rule over us, keep us in ignorance, and that Satan is on the throne for this world. But that's not what's going to happen, in my opinion. All right. I wanted to mention briefly before we finish, we're almost done, but I wanted to mention this is an interesting YouTube channel and some of the things that it does. So what this guy does, and this Roman numeral is 88 Finis Temporis. Of course, that means 88, the end of the world. And what he does is he goes through different movies and he shows you the symbolism in those movies regarding 88, eclipses, and a lot of 9/11, 9/11 symbology in different movies, all how it relates and how the elites hide that stuff in movies. He does a really good job in most cases on all of that information. It's a really interesting YouTube channel, one of the very few that I really enjoy keeping up with to see what he's done. But I wanted to bring you into one of his videos, and you can see I mentioned a few here, why 88 is connected to the eclipse. Marty McFly and the Pinheads, these are a couple of the really good ones that that are worth watching if you have a chance. The Back to the Future trilogy, the 3 acts of world-changing events. Donnie Darko, he does a couple videos on Donnie Darko, the movie, and how that projects the current time we're living in and a lot of this stuff. And then a Minority Report movie. Anyway, it's a really, really good channel with a lot of interesting stuff. If you want to waste a whole Saturday, you can watch this stuff. Yeah, Donnie Darko is loaded, like you said, with symbolism. But let's watch in this video for just a second. Let me see if I can get this going so it works and I can pop through here. So let's see. All right. Now this is a video on the movie End of Days. Oops. From 1999. If you remember, that video is Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it's about the end of the world that's supposed to happen. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger, he thwarts Satan in this movie and stops the end of the world from occurring. But there's some really interesting symbolism in this movie, and it relates to the eclipse. So I just wanted you guys to be able to see this because this happens in lots of different movies. But here's what we'll do. We'll pop through here real quick. So right here, you'll notice that Arnold Schwarzenegger, his name in this movie is Jericho Kane. Well, JC, of course, is Jesus Christ. They'll do this actually more than you might think in movies and TV shows. They'll name a character with the JC. And oftentimes, as in this movie, they mean for that character to be like a Christ figure. Now, if we move forward. Now you'll notice that you just saw an eclipse, and that was in the credits, of course, roll by. But this eclipse being used to symbolize everything they're going to talk about, the end of the world, the conquering of the world by Satan. And you'll see that, I think it's, is it Al Pacino plays Satan in this movie? I can't remember exactly, but someone like him. Let's see here.
What do you got there, Charlie? I don't know. Pressure's falling off the gauge.
Now you guys will notice that we just saw an earthquake, and where is this happening? Well, this is in New York City. Okay, so it's interesting that we just had this earthquake in New York City. This is actually not something he mentions much about in this video because he did this video a year ago. But it's interesting to me now that we had an earthquake just now in New York City days ago, and this movie has it in regards to the end of the world, quote unquote, according to them. So let's jump ahead a little bit.
Interesting. I'm trying to figure out what everyone's predicting here. Is the world going to come to an end at exactly 12:01 on New Year's, or is it? I'll tell you what, lady. I think you should play it safe.
So you see there, he's again, this Finis Temporis is pointing out the references to the Twin Towers and how that also is a part of the Satanist elite plan for the end of the world, for them to take over the world, essentially.
They pay better.
And you see throughout the two towers, the Twin Towers are shown intentionally in these different scenes. You think it was just happenstance that they were shooting in some apartment building for this video, for the movie, that happened to be across the street or down the block from the two towers and it was right in the window? No, there's nothing mistaken about that. It's absolutely intentional when these movies do this kind of thing.
To stay calm during this holiday season.
Explanations yet for how blood on the hands of the Christ child, depicted in Michelangelo's famous sculpture of the Pieta.
Atmosphere of fear and panic, random acts of violence are being attributed.
Again, they go to ground zero in the video. They use the footage a lot to show you ground zero, the Twin Towers, and the exact location that occurred. That to the elite was a huge event in their attempts to take over the world. Now, I thought this was an interesting little cut, a scene. Now, Finis Temporis doesn't mention this in this video, but I noticed this because as far as we've been now talking about these eclipse paths crossing and creating an X over the United States, in this shot, again, nothing in these movies is accidental. They have this character who is Satan, and they show him walking directly through the X's of these signs on the ground, the X where the lines cross. To me, that was intentional. Again, is it a corollary to the eclipse paths crossing? Maybe. I don't know for sure, but it's just, I thought was really interesting, and especially in this conversation, makes a lot of sense. All right, so now let's move ahead.
Promised, you'll see. He keeps his promises.
I can give it all back to you. Everything that he took away. Everything.
Now you notice in this scene that Satan is tempting Jericho Cain, who his name is JC, like Jesus Christ, and he's tempting him, saying, I can give you everything. It's just like the temptation of Christ in the Bible. So this movie mirrors so many things in the religious narrative of Jesus Christ. It just is striking.
You should have taken my offer. At least you would have been happy once in your life.
I'm gonna hurt you so bad you're gonna beg to die. But I'm not gonna let you. It's not gonna be that easy. You're mine, and I want you to see what's gonna happen.
Now you can see, I mean, this is probably very sacrilegious to your sentiments. I hope that doesn't offend anyone. But, you know, these people will put anything they want in these movies. And, of course, they put this JC, Jericho Cain, figure on a cross and crucify him in the movie. Now, to me, it is definitely sacrilegious. But you have to think the way they think. They are representing to you something that they see coming. The people that made this movie are trying to expose something to you. It's either good guys trying to show you what's going to happen, or it's bad guys trying to show you so that they have indemnity from spiritual consequence for doing these things to us. So you have to realize these types of things in these movies are not by mistake. They are intentional. So there's a couple more, just a couple more here.
Jesus. What'd you do, get hit by a truck?
So it's interesting there that they even are so bold as to have another character essentially say to Jericho Cain, Jesus, and essentially calling him Jesus in the movie. So the reference is very overt. We miss these things when we watch movies like this, but it's very overt. And then the last clip is at the end where you'll see what happens. So in the end of the movie, the JC character sacrifices himself to stop this entry of Satan and his legion of demons into the world. And he does it on the sword of the angel Michael, which is interesting, or Gabriel perhaps. Just some interesting symbolism there, but please realize like what they're showing us here, what they are showing us. The elite, by the way, they feel like that, again, they can eclipse this world with the power of Satan. That is their intent and their goal, and always has been. And they started that with the ritual of 9/11. And it's clear to me that this likelihood of tomorrow being something significant for them is high. That they feel this is the end of the period in which they were going to convert the world to evil, to the rule of Satan. But I believe that they have been thwarted. And I believe that what's actually going to happen after this eclipse is the start of their downfall. And so you can bide my words, watch it over the next few months, and we'll see what happens. I'm not going to try to tell you on this date something's going to happen or that date, but I truly believe that over the next few months, we're going to start seeing major things occur in the world, particularly in America. And I truly hope that I'm right because it will affect every man, woman, and child in this country. So I hope that's helpful to you. I think in regards to the eclipse, there's not much else. That's all that I had. I checked on There's No Place Like Home. She had a good video on this stuff, but it was most of the same information that we've gone over here. So I just wanted to show you all that stuff. In general, I appreciate you guys spending this time. It's been a great time. I'll stay on here for a couple more minutes because I want to see if you guys have anything for me. I've not been able to check your comments very carefully during this live stream. So if you have anything you'd like to talk about, I can briefly do that for just a few minutes. We've gone pretty long, but that was it. I wanted to give you guys the information so you have information to work from. We shouldn't go into tomorrow being ignorant and not knowing anything. Now we know a ton of information, a ton of different perspectives. You have so much you can now apply to what's going to happen tomorrow. You can look for, you can be careful about, you can make your own decisions now on what you're going to do tomorrow or not do, where you're going to go, what you're going to do. I hope that this has helped you in some way, in that way of giving you the information you need just to know more about what's going on. I personally, again, I'll reiterate that I do not think anything super major is going to happen tomorrow. Now, I do have a slight suspicion that there may be some kind of a false flag attack on the citizens of America. I hope that's not the case. I hope it doesn't happen, but I am wary of it. I'm cautious of it. So if you're going out tomorrow, I would just say be careful. Keep your head on a swivel, so to speak. But I would do that in this day and age. I do that whenever I go out. So please just be careful, be safe. Maybe pray for those around us, as we go through this and see what happens. Again, I don't think it's anything to be afraid of. And I do think too that the evil people in this world think so much of this day, and it's going to be turned around on top of their heads. So I just think that that's the truth of where we're headed here. And where there'll be earthquakes in our future because of this comet and eclipse, your guess is as good as mine. I hope it's not a scenario like 1811 was, because that was some horrible, horrible earthquakes that passed through our nation. So anyway, with that, I'm just going to take a few comments and try to talk to you guys for a few minutes, and then we'll be done here. What all are you guys saying about all this? I saw at least one or two of you say you thought I had a good take, so thank you for that. I hope that it's the best I can do. It's the best I can do. Tiffany, you say, regarding the false flag we should be mindful of, you're still curious what everyone thinks regarding keeping our kids home from school and possibly turning off our electronics for the day. I would say, Tiffany, that if I was you, I might keep my kids home just for the heck of it. Just because, well, for one, everyone else is doing it. There are probably not going to be that many kids in the classrooms. Might as well bring them home. And just, I don't know that it's really a safety concern, perhaps, unless you're maybe in the path of totality. probably if you're in the path of totality, they've already canceled schools. It sounds like most schools are doing that anyway. But in general, I would say, you know, if you have a chance to keep your kids home, maybe you just do it and have fun at home for the day. I think that'd be great. But I don't think you really have much to worry about as far as your kids' safety in a school. But that would be up to you. You know, in the end, you have to make the best decision you can. By the way, I'm really glad to have all you guys that are new. I've seen a lot of new names. It's great to see you here. I just hope that you would, you know, join us next week. Every Sunday we do this at the same time, 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern, and enjoy the conversation on biblical topics. You know, we go through the Bible, we go through ancient writings, all sorts of stuff. Would love to have you guys back. Laura Masood, you say, you can't stay like this. No one stays pregnant forever. Evil cannot reign forever. I agree, Laura. And that's why I definitely think that we're seeing a tide turn, and perhaps tomorrow is a big shift. It's the start of the Hebrew New Year. That's significant. It is an eclipse. That's significant. We'll just have to wait and see, Laura. But stay close. It'll all be good. Josh, you're going to get a suntan. Okay, good for you. I can see Josh now in the lounge with some, like, those black eye covers on in the solar eclipse. All right. Linda Connor, you're not going to look at the eclipse. I get it. I understand. Fun time today. Yeah, B. Nichols, it's good. It was fun to do something a little different. The truth puzzle life, I agree 100% with what you said. No fear. That's why I think information's important, right? That's why I wanted to give you the information today. And we went a little outside the box on what we normally do, but I had just looked up all this stuff and I wanted to show it to you so we don't have fear. We're aware. We know what we might expect, right? I hope that does help. West Wind, now total eclipse of the heart or the sun is playing in your head. Great. Now it's playing in all of our heads. Thank you very much. Good stuff. Kelsey, you say, I don't understand why I can't look. I didn't understand in 2017 either. Kelsey, that statement about not looking, I'm not sure how much I trust that. That source is not one that I give a lot of weight to. It's more of a entertainment value for me, that qofficial.net site. I just keep up with it because it's interesting, and sometimes it actually seems to preclude some things that happen, but I don't know if I would trust it. I believe you'll probably be fine if you wanted to use eclipse glasses and watch the eclipse. I don't know why there would be a problem, but I'm, again, just trying to give information so you guys can make your own determinations. Josh, and you say 9/11 is the Ethiopian New Year. It's 2015 there. Interesting. Ruah, coincidence theorist. You say, praise the Most High. I agree with you, sir. Praise the Most High in heaven. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for this time today you spent with me. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. And thank you for your input that others have been able to enjoy on the chat. It's always a pleasure. And with that, I must say, God bless you. Have a great week and stay safe tomorrow. See you guys.